You know that feeling when you pull into a highway gas station at like 2 in the morning?
Oh, yeah, the fluorescent lights are buzzing. You're just totally exhausted.
Right. And you grab a paper cup of, well, the darkest, cheapest drip coffee they have sitting on the burner. You expect a very simple, I guess, biological transaction.
Yeah, a basic input-output situation.
Exactly. You drink the hot liquid, it blocks some adenosine receptors in your brain, and you wake up. It's binary.
Yeah.
Beverage goes in, energy comes out.
Or so we thought, anyway.
Right, because Dr. Silas Vana and Dr. Lena Rillis just published this research paper in April 2026, and it implies that your cup of cheap rest stop dark roast isn't actually a beverage at all,
No, it's really not. It is actually a clandestine piece of digital infrastructure.
which is just wild. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today, we are taking you, the listener, on a journey to uncover the hidden, honestly sci-fi reality behind that perfectly mundane activity.
It completely shatters the illusion of independent human transit. I mean, it really does. Their paper, which is called the Fuel Load Protocol, reviews that major beverage distributors have been secretly turning human drivers into biological hardware components.
And all of this is to solve a massive data processing problem on our highways, right?
Exactly.
So today, we are going to explore how we are being unknowingly biohacked to physically integrate with the asphalt beneath our tires. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why the coffee is altered, we first have to understand the environment it is designed for.
Right, the context is everything here.
We have to talk about the modern smart highway.
Yeah, and that is really the foundation of this entire situation because, we still think of highways as dumb rock and tar, just passive strips of asphalt.
Sure, just a flat surface to drive on.
Exactly. But over the last decade, transit corridors have transitioned into active, highly sensitive, sensor-rich environments. The researchers actually refer to this as an autonomous flow matrix.
An autonomous flow matrix. I mean, it sounds incredibly futuristic, but what does that actually look like on the ground? Are we talking about cameras or lasers or something else entirely?
Well, it's mostly invisible to us. Beneath the surface of these high-density highway corridors, there are thousands of embedded inductive loop sensors.
Okay, embedded right into the road.
Yeah, right in the asphalt. Think of them as a massive nervous system for the road itself. These sensors are constantly pinging or polling the environment to detect the speed, weight, and distance of thousands of vehicles at once.
Oh, wow.
And then they communicate with traffic management systems to adjust digital speed limits, control ramp meters, and basically maintain stability in this massive flowing network of metal and glass.
So the road is constantly doing math to keep traffic moving smoothly.
Exactly. Millions of calculations.
And to do that math, I'm guessing the autonomous flow matrix needs perfectly precise, predictable data.
It desperately needs predictability, which brings us to the single biggest vulnerability in the entire trillion-dollar system.
Us, human beings.
You guessed it. Human drivers are incredibly erratic. I mean, we get fatigued. Our reaction times fluctuate wildly from person to person and even from hour to hour in the same person.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I drive differently at 8 a.m. than I do at midnight.
Right. You might have great reflexes after a full night's sleep, but a guy 2 lanes over is staring at a billboard and hits his brakes a fraction of a second too late.
I see where this is going. So the paper calls this human erraticism data packet jitter, right?
Yes, data packet jitter.
It's like trying to stream a pristine 4K movie, but one of the servers is running on 1990s dial-up. In this scenario, human biology is the dial-up connection lagging the whole smart grid. We are the bottleneck.
A bottleneck that actually threatens the entire network. Every time a human driver reacts inconsistently, it sends this ripple of instability through the system.
Because the sensors are expecting a specific timing?
Exactly. The inductive loop sensors are pulling at very specific intervals. When a driver's biological response diverges from that automated sensor polling frequency, the system literally can't process the flow correctly.
So the whole grid gets confused.
Yeah. And the transit industry realized a long time ago that public policy campaigns urging, driver alertness were totally useless.
Because alertness is subjective.
Right. Alertness doesn't mean precision. What the infrastructure actually requires is synchronized response, or SR. They don't just need you awake. They need you reacting in perfect mechanical time with the sensors.
Which makes me wonder, if the highway infrastructure has a data processing problem, why are we looking at the beverage industry to solve it?
That is the big question.
I mean, if civil engineers built roads that are too smart for the people driving on them, shouldn't they just go back and fix the roads? Or, rely entirely on self-driving cars.
Well, in a perfect world, yes.
Ah,
But let's look at the economics of it. You can't just tear up and rebuild tens of thousands of miles of embedded sensor networks. That is a multi-trillion-dollar sunk cost.
right.
The money. Always the money. And we are still decades away from every single car on the road being fully autonomous. So the infrastructure managers were left with a massive problem. They couldn't fix the legacy asphalt, and they couldn't mandate new cars for everyone.
So they looked at the one moving part in the system they could secretly manipulate.
The human operator.
So they decided to fix the drivers, which leads us to the fuel load protocol. And this is where the paper just absolutely blew my mind. Tell me how a corporate supply chain actually manages to upgrade human nervous systems.
It's really a masterclass in exploiting consumer habits. I mean, you can't force every driver crossing state lines to pull over and swallow a synchronization pill.
No, that would cause a massive panic. People would riot.
Exactly. But long-haul truckers, families on road trips, commuters, they all universally stop at roadside gas stations to buy coffee.
It's the one thing everyone does. But regular coffee doesn't do the trick, right? I mean, standard caffeine just gives you a jolt of energy and then you crash 2 hours later.
Right. Regular caffeine is far too volatile. It cannot provide what the industry calls a stable sink rate optimization coefficient.
A sink rate optimization coefficient. Try saying that 3 times fast.
I know it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But basically, a standard espresso shot causes your heart rate and nerve firing to spike unpredictably, which actually makes the data packet jitter worse.
Oh, because now you're jumpy and unpredictable.
Exactly. So, major roadside beverage distributors quietly implemented a highly specific, multi-stage thermal process on commercial-grade Robusta beans.
Wait, why Robusta? Why not Arabica, which is like what most high-end coffee shops use?
Well, Robusta beans naturally contain a much higher concentration of a specific compound called chlorogenic acid. In standard roasting, this acid just breaks down and gives the coffee a really bitter taste.
Which is why cheap coffee tastes so harsh.
Right. But under this new fuel load protocol, distributors flash roast the beans at extreme temperatures well over 200 degrees Celsius in highly pressurized environments.
Okay, so they cook the absolute life out of these beans. But how does that solve an infrastructure problem? What is that extreme heat actually doing?
What's fascinating here is the chemical transmutation. That extreme flash roasting isn't about flavor at all. It structurally modifies the chlorogenic acid, forcing it to crystallize.
Crystallize.
Yeah, it intentionally leaves behind a microscopic carbon lattice residue. To put it in plain engineering terms, the roasting process creates microscopic semiconductors inside the coffee bean.
Hold on, I really need to process this. Here's where it gets really interesting. We are talking about drinking semiconductors.
Yes, literally.
But human biology is incredibly hostile to foreign objects. If you drink a microcrystal, it hits your stomach acid, which is basically hydrochloric acid. Wouldn't the stomach just dissolve it before it ever reached the nervous system?
You would think so, but that is where the genius of the delivery system comes in. The carbon lattice residue is suspended deep within the coffee's natural fats, the lipid matrix.
The natural oils in the coffee.
Exactly. Those lipids act as a protective thermal and chemical shield. So when you drink the coffee, the lipid coating protects the semiconductive crystals from your stomach acid.
Wow.
It allows them to safely pass right into the small intestine, where they are absorbed directly into the bloodstream and carried up to the central nervous system.
So we are secretly treating human beings like literal hardware components. We are swallowing shielded microchips disguised as a dark roast. Are government regulators even aware of this? Like, is this even legal?
Well, the paper points out a massive blind spot in our regulatory framework. The Food and Drug Administration evaluates coffee based on traditional health metrics. So they look at caffeine, toxicity, acidity, basic food safety.
Things that make you sick in the short term.
Right. And the Department of Transportation handles traffic laws and road construction.
Yeah.
There is no combined regulatory body equipped to evaluate a hot beverage that functions as an operational component of a digital network.
That is a terrifying loophole.
It really is. As long as the semiconductive residue doesn't technically poison you, the FDA stamps it as safe, completely ignoring the fact that it's designed to upgrade your nervous system's firmware.
So the regulators are checking to make sure the coffee won't give you a stomach ache, while totally missing that it's turning you into a router.
Basically, yes.
Okay, let's follow the microcrystals. We know they survive the stomach, they ride the bloodstream, and they hit the central nervous system. What is the mechanism there? How does a carbon lattice actually plug you into the highway matrix?
Well, once the semiconductive residue enters your nervous system, the microcrystals lodge themselves into the synaptic gaps between your neurons.
Just wedging right in there.
Exactly. They act as microscopic resistors, artificially standardizing the electrochemical signaling rate of your brain. They shift your baseline receptivity to a very specific, rigid frequency band.
A frequency of 60 hertz. I remember seeing that number in the paper and immediately having to just put the document down.
It is the smoking gun of the entire study. 60 hertz is the exact frequency used by modern road surface communication arrays.
Wow.
The inductive loop sensors embedded in the asphalt operate on a 60 hertz phase.
So by chemically forcing our synapses to fire at 60 cycles per second, the human body establishes what the authors call a biological resonance threshold.
Right, the driver and the road are vibrating electrochemically speaking on the exact same wavelength.
So you become physically attuned to the polling rate of the sensors.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? From a practical standpoint, does this dystopian biohack actually work? Does it make traffic flow better?
It works terrifyingly well, actually. The data analysis shows that this biochemical calibration results in a staggering 14.2% reduction in driver reaction latency.
14.2%. I mean, if you are traveling at 75 miles an hour down an interstate, a 14% faster reaction time is the difference between a smooth brake and a devastating multi-car pileup.
Absolutely. It effectively eliminates the human bottleneck we were talking about. The data packet jitter plummets.
Because everyone is synced.
Right. The network stabilizes because the human components are now functioning at a predictable, optimized speed, reacting to brake lights and lane shifts in perfect tandem with the smart roads calculations.
That is incredible. And a little scary.
The researchers even cracked the mathematical formula for this state of synchronization. They call it the S-Rindex.
Yes, the S-Rindex. Let's ground this for a second so anyone listening can really visualize how mathematical this has become.
Sure.
Let's put me in the driver's seat. Let's say I pull over, I buy a 16-ounce gas station coffee, and I drink it. How does this formula calculate my sync rate as I merge back onto the interstate?
It's a very elegant equation, honestly. First, we take your coffee intake, which is measured in the parts per million of that semiconductive residue circulating in your blood.
Okay, so step one is just how much of the crystal is in me.
Right. Then we divide that by your delta latency, meaning how much your baseline reaction time has physically shrunk since drinking it.
Got it. So intake divided by latency improvement.
Exactly. And finally, we multiply that result by a variable called phi grid.
And phi grid is the local phase shift of the inductive loop sensor array, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the localized digital pulse of the smart road I happen to be driving over at that exact second.
Correct. So intake divided by latency times the road's digital pulse. According to the data, when that resulting math hits a perfect 1.0, you are officially synchronized.
Wow. Not alert, not awake. Synchronized.
Synchronized.
We aren't drinking a beverage to fight off sleep. We are chemically tuning our brains like flesh and blood radios to broadcast and receive on the highway's exact frequency.
That is the reality of it.
And this actually brings up something I think every single person listening to this right now has experienced.
Yeah.
Because up until this point, we've been discussing, high-level cybernetics, hidden supply chains, and math.
Right. Very abstract concepts.
But Dr. Vanna and Dr. Rillis connected this massive conspiracy to a deeply relatable physical experience.
The jitters.
The coffee jitters. If you've ever been on a long road trip, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You grab that roadside coffee, you get back in the car, and an hour later, your hands are shaking on the steering wheel.
Yep. Everyone knows that feeling.
There's this vibrating tension in your chest. You feel physically buzzed in a way that is deeply uncomfortable. The assumption has always been that you just had too much caffeine, or maybe the coffee was overly acidic.
And that is the assumption the industry relies on to keep this quiet. But the researchers surveyed 1,200 long-haul truckers. The demographic that spends the absolute most time on these smart grids, consuming the highest volume of this specific protocol coffee.
The ultimate test subjects.
Right. And the study revealed a massive misconception. Those caffeine jitters are not a symptom of overcaffeination.
So what is actually happening in the body when our hands start to shake?
Well, the researchers identified that physical sensation as physiological resonance adjustment, or PRA.
Physiological resonance adjustment.
Yeah. Yes. When you feel that vibrating tension in your chest, you are feeling your central nervous system violently recalibrating itself to the local traffic management grid.
That is horrifying. If you're listening to this on a commute right now, look at your coffee cup.
Mm-hmm.
The shaking isn't a caffeine overdose. It is the physical sensation of your biology buffering.
That is a great way to put it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the survey data showed a direct, undeniable correlation between traffic density and the intensity of the jitters.
Wait, really? The traffic changes how much you shake.
Yes. Think about how an autonomous flow matrix operates. If a highway is empty, the sensors only need to ping occasionally. But in high traffic density, like approaching a major metropolitan area during rush hour, the highway sensors have to pull at exponentially higher rates to manage the chaotic flow of thousands of tightly packed vehicles.
Oh my God. Let me make sure I am grasping the reality of this. I'm driving down a deserted stretch of highway, sipping my coffee, and I feel totally fine. Then I hit the city limits. The road sensors suddenly start pinging frantically to manage the incoming traffic jam. And because my brain is chemically synced to those sensors, my altered nervous system physically shakes as it desperately tries to keep up with the road's spiking data demands.
That is exactly what is happening. The jitter is physical proof that the synchronization protocol is active and struggling to match a high-stress environment. Your body is straining to lock into the aggressive polling rate of the dense traffic grid.
Just trying to keep the connection alive.
Exactly. In fact, the paper notes a fascinating, albeit dark, implication. Drivers who do not feel the jitter when entering high-density zones are failing to sync with the smart road.
Meaning their bodies rejected the microcrystals, or maybe the lipid matrix failed?
Yes, exactly. And when they fail to sync, they become the dial-up connection, slowing down the network again. Their suboptimal reaction times introduce massive latency back into the autonomous flow matrix.
That analogy of the buffering video really is the only way to describe it. The jitters are literally just your biological loading screen while you connect to a Wi-Fi network made of asphalt.
It really is.
It fundamentally changes how you think about autonomy, doesn't it? I mean, we get in our cars and we think we are making independent choices. We choose the radio station, we choose the lane, we choose the speed.
But we aren't really.
No. In reality, our physical neurological reaction times are being puppeted by a feedback loop between commercial agriculture and civil infrastructure.
It is the ultimate invisible tether. Dr. Vanna and Dr. Rillis conclude their study with a stark warning. The roadside coffee industry is no longer merely selling a stimulant. They are providing a critical, load-bearing infrastructure service.
Because without it,
Without the fuel load protocol chemically standardizing human reflexes, the modern transit matrix would quite literally collapse under the weight of our unpredictability. We have built a world too fast and too smart for our natural biology, so we had to secretly modify the biology to survive it.
and we are doing it completely under the radar. It is just wild. We start this deep dive talking about a mundane cup of dark roast, and we end up uncovering a reality where you and I are basically biohacked nodes in a digital transit matrix.
It forces us to entirely rethink the boundary between the natural human body and the built environment.
It really does. So to you listening right now, let's summarize what we've actually learned today. The erratic nature of human drivers forces the modern, sensor-rich highway to seek out standardized response times.
Right.
To solve this without rebuilding the roads, the beverage industry stepped in with a clandestine supply chain solution, flash roasting coffee, to turn chlorogenic acid into semiconductive carbon lattices.
A brilliant, if terrifying, engineering feat.
Truly. We learned how those microcrystals use coffee lipids to survive your stomach acid, travel to your brain, and chemically tune your synapses to the exact 60 hertz frequency of the road beneath you.
Attuning you to the matrix.
And finally, we discovered that those uncomfortable jitters you feel on a long drive aren't from too much caffeine at all. They are the literal physical feeling of your nervous system buffering to match the data demands of the smart grid.
You are quite literally becoming part of the infrastructure.
The next time you pull over at a highway rest stop, pour yourself a cup of that dark liquid and get back behind the wheel, well, remember that you aren't just waking yourself up. You are logging your nervous system onto the grid. You are submitting to the autonomous flow matrix.
A sobering thought for your next road trip.
Absolutely. Which leaves me with one final, deeply unsettling thought for you to mull over today. If our biology is already being quietly, chemically tweaked by a commercial beverage just to interface with highway sensors, what other daily consumables might be secretly syncing our bodies to unseen networks in our homes, our phones, or our workplaces without us ever knowing?
A profound and terrifying question to end on.
Keep an eye on your coffee, everyone.